Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order with the board members present. We have Sheila, Julie, Prudence, and Art in attendance. And we have Marcia and Michelle as our guests this morning.
Susan, you have
Here.
Janine as well.
Okay. And let's see, no guests right now. If you have a question or a comment, raise your hand. We'll try our best to pay attention to who's needing some of our attention and recognize you and continue on. So welcome to the 2021 Senior Advisory Board. Has everyone had a chance to review the January 2021 minutes? And are there any corrections? If not, will someone make a motion to accept?
No.
Is that Art?
Yes.
I'll second. So the minutes of last month in January are accepted. And then it looks like on the old business, we have some open positions for other committees, TRG, which comes due in April. And then the Friends and the Sustainability, if we had a backup person, that would be great. So has anybody thought about possibly doing that? Janine.
I have a question about sustainability. I agreed to take over as the representative, but it says sustainability implementation, and I cannot find that on the city site. I'm wondering if it's Sustainability Coalition instead of implementation.
You know, Janine, that's a great question because there's several different layers of committees within the sustainability effort. And I'm not exactly sure which committee or coalition or advisory group that Jack was on, but I will follow up with Lisa and have her reach out to you, okay? Lisa.
Okay. The other issue was that it was their quarterly meetings. I suspect it's the coalition, but
Okay.
their quarterly meetings, and they have online that it's the 10th, not the 5th.
I think those are the dates from 2020.
Okay. So, and also the time was different. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have competing times between AAC and sustainability. I think sustainability is going to be on Wednesdays, and I think it's going to be 5:15 to 7:15. But I didn't know whether I should try to contact them and find out. But I'll let you do that, Michelle, if you would just send me a text and confirm what committee I'm on and confirm the date. I have 2:10 and I have 5:15 to 7:15 p.m. is what I'm thinking it is. And if so, I will be able to attend.
All right. I will do that and get back with you. And then I think, so a couple things. One is we don't have to have a backup, but we have had that in the past. So that's a clarity. Sheila, I know you attended the annual meeting for the Friends. I don't know if you and Susan had talked and you were going to be the liaison to the Friends and Susan, your backup, or vice versa. So I just need some clarity on,
I'll remain the liaison.
okay. And
Miller, would you be the backup?
Yeah, I'll continue to be the backup.
okay.
Sounds good.
And then the technical review group for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which Michelle Kriegut was the liaison to, was not sure what their structure was going to be. And I did confirm with Kathy Fedler that they would like a replacement for Michelle from the senior advisory group, and that would start in April. So that's a very housing focused group, focused on housing for low income and vulnerable populations. And this position or this liaison has really been about the older adult housing issues in the community. And they generally have met quarterly, but also sort of meet when they need to meet. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because I have Michelle's report. But we would need somebody from this group starting April 1st as the representative to the Housing Technical Review Group. So that would be great as well.
I'll volunteer for that one.
Julie?
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, it's right in my wheelhouse.
And I will get that information to you, Julie, and I will give your email to Kathy Fedler. She's the city staff person who works with that group. So that's great. Thank you.
So we should be set to at least carry on, but it would be nice to have, let's see, some additional board members to cover our vacancies. So you said that would be a recruitment in the spring, right, Michelle?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought of somebody. I'll reach out to them and see if they would be interested. And then you've got health and wellness in the facility.
Yeah, so Nicole is going to screen share this document. I did not send it out, mostly because the city has a pretty structured process for requests for proposals. So I was just trying to contain the information that's out and about. I want to make sure that I captured from your input from the last meeting. So in November of 2000, the senior services staff and the advisory board did the first RFP for health and wellness services. And that is what we are reviewing and reissuing, a new RFP for health and wellness services. So that's sort of the first paragraph. The scope of work is really what I am first and foremost most interested, if I captured this correctly. Really what this says is these services will be provided on site here at the senior center, and that we will give the selected person or agency an office and a treatment room at no charge. And they will have additional space as needed. I have indicated that marketing and registration support will be provided, and that is by senior services. And that we want ongoing services provided in conjunction with prearranged treatments, screenings, and health education. I have added that we want both a traditional and a complementary approach to health and wellness. If there's better language around that, I'm interested in that. That we want a consultation regarding shared areas of concern, collaboration on programs and services is also expected. That next paragraph under scope of work is what I really tried to capture, and then I'm going to pause for some input. So we identified physical therapy, occupational therapy, foot care, arthritis management, balance support and fall prevention, diabetes, eye care, hearing care, oral health, massage, advanced directives, death and dying, responsiveness to trends, and a use of a variety of local providers, which means they can't just use those folks in their own wheelhouse. So a pause here. That's a lot of me talking. Did I capture everything from the last meeting? Anything misspoken there? Anything missed? So just kind of an open check here from folks.
Michelle, were we going to add in anything about alternatives like acupuncture?
So what I said was complementary, and I'm curious, is alternative a better word or in addition to complementary? Julie, what do you think?
You know, I feel that a lot of people will look at the word alternative and connect that to acupuncture or other disciplines that are in that arena.
So maybe add acupuncture in that specific list and maybe add alternative along with traditional and complementary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Janine, you need to unmute. You're still muted. There, try that.
Over on the side here, thinking of terms that people might be familiar with, like holistic, they might incorporate that. But I think for the group of people that we work with, that I would specifically list the services, because not everyone is familiar with alternative or augmenting or holistic or those terms.
Okay. Great.
I have one other question, Michelle. This doesn't, this is in addition to what the senior center offers in terms of mental health. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
But we would want to partner with them because some things overlap. For example, a local healthcare provider wanted to do a class on ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. And I wanted Brandy brought into that conversation because that is typically, not always, but a last kind of resort for depression. And so was the topic depression, and they were going to talk about all kinds of ways, or was it specifically about ECT? And so we consulted with Brandy, and we are not going to offer a standalone program on ECT. That did not seem to be appropriate. So that
Good.
consultation piece and where medical and mental health sort of intersect, we want to continue to make sure we're talking about that. So we're not going to do that. So it's important for some people, but it's a fairly small percentage of the total who are challenged with depression. So
Also good to avoid those things that are controversial in terms of therapeutic use.
Sheila?
And would there be a method of liaising, sending patients maybe backwards and forwards to the mental health services offered by the senior center and the health and wellness people? So if one side feels the other services are necessary, there'd be an easy way to make that transfer.
So maybe I can strengthen how we spell out that connection between health and well-being and mental health services.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good catch. The other piece that I realized after I kind of pulled this together was I have no shame on me. I have no reference to bilingual, bicultural services. So that's an add I intend to make. That we want to make sure we are reaching all of our community. Okay, if there's nothing else on the scope of work, Nicole, if you can scroll to where it says evaluation criteria. Yeah, there we go. So I have these currently listed in order of importance. I am interested in if you would add any, delete any, or reorder this list. So any feedback on the evaluation criteria?
Just where it says bilingual, bicultural, Spanish, Latino only refers to male.
Right. I think the new is Latinx. I'm out of date on that one, but I'll fix that, Prudence. Thank you.
I think Latinx may be generational.
Yeah.
So Latino and Latina may be, and I'll defer to Art, may be the term that most Latinx who are a certain age in the senior group may identify with Latino, Latina, rather than Latinx, but I'll defer to someone.
Art, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I really don't. No, I don't have that much on it. You know, the situation anymore is that people don't like to be left out. And I don't know if you want to put, I don't know if we would just put the Latino or Latina or just leave it the way it is. I mean, I guess the more would be better. So if you're looking at the word Latino and you want to include the Latina, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I would think that would probably be a good thing today because everybody wants to be included. So I would recommend adding Latina to it also, you know.
Okay, great.
Janine?
I have a question in terms of contractors. Is there something set in place for vetting?
So I think you're asking about how we will use this evaluation criteria to vet any proposals. Is that right?
No, I'm thinking about individual contractors. I assume that there is a process in place for vetting them,
So,
checking them out, checking licensure, those kinds of things.
okay. So you're really speaking to if we gave this proposal, if we selected an organization or an individual, they would need to have a procedure in place for choosing subcontractors.
Yes, I mean, my question, I guess, is if a contractor comes, if they come and offer to provide services, does the senior center do vetting of the people that are going to provide those services, or do they, it may be an individual person that isn't represented by an organization per se, let's say a massage therapist.
Right.
Is there a process in in place for making sure that they're licensed. You know, that a vetting process is what I'm asking about.
So when we worked with Longmont United Centura and Michelle Whitmore was there, she hired the massage therapist to be Longmont United employees, and she did that. So our agreement was with Longmont United, and then they did that.
Yeah.
So I will work on language to make sure that any subcontractor sort of approach is also vetted. Thank you. Any reordering or other additions to this evaluation criteria?
Should we include anything about they have to work within our structure at the senior center, whether it be time-wise or with staff to schedule events?
Okay.
I mean, that was kind of a given with Longmont United.
It was. Yep. Great. I will add that.
Can I go back to Janine's question about specifically massage therapists? Would we be doing a background check?
We, as in the City of Longmont Senior Services, would not. We would build that into this. Whoever gets this is selected because of this process. We would expect them to do that. And what I think Janine is saying is we need to spell that out. If
Okay.
they use others, that they have done proper, appropriate vetting. So
Okay.
we'll add that language in.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Sheila.
And I think I know what it means, but timeline for completion of work.
Right.
I'm not sure what the work is.
It refers to how quickly and ably they are to respond to any deadlines. So that may be some of what Susan's talking about, and it just needs to be spelled out a little bit more clearly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for instance, before the go goes to press, they have to have their schedule outlined so we can advertise for them.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, so the next step for this is to work with our purchasing department to release this RFP. We within the city call this time period the cone of silence. We are in the cone of silence because the city is very clear about meeting all law and regulations regarding purchasing. And so this will kind of go into a quiet zone. And then when we are ready to evaluate any proposals that return, that will also be quite a confidential process until we have made that selection. So because of that is why I didn't just send this out to everyone. I'm just trying to contain it. And then we'll come back and we'll make, hopefully we'll get some good proposals and we'll make a selection and go from there. One of the things that came up at the last meeting was the possibility, the opportunity, should we give Longmont United Hospital a first right to refusal? That is not typically how this city works. But I am interested in your thoughts. Longmont United Centura could come to the table as an equal opportunity with anyone else who might want to apply and for the partnership. So just want to check in with you on that, that piece relative to Longmont United. They've been a great partner for 20 years. So thoughts on that before we move past this item?
I feel like once we lost Michelle Whitmore, it pretty much put the relationship on a downward spiral. They're not supporting the senior center with their decisions and their closure of the integrative medicine center. So I would personally not give them any right of first refusal. Sheila.
Well, Janine had her hand up before I did, so
Oh,
No,
sorry.
that's okay.
Sheila, I can be second.
I just wanted to say I agree with Susan. I think every recipient of the RFP should be treated equally.
Janine.
I agree with that. I think that it would be best to follow the city guidelines at this point, as we did not drop them, they kind of dropped us, so.
Marcia. I
Thank
can't
you.
see everybody on my screen, so I apologize.
That's all right. I wanted to first agree. I don't think a first right, there's not enough of a relationship at this point to do a first right of refusal. And I just also wanted to express my appreciation, Michelle, for your awareness and observance of the confidentiality of the city bid process. That doesn't always happen, and it's good when it does.
And I support the same thing in the sense that, you know, if Longmont United is interested, they're going to have the option. You know, sometimes things get, like I said, when someone leaves, some things get lost sometimes. And, you know, hopefully when they see this, they can make their decision if they want to apply or not at that point.
Okay. All right. I think I will move this forward, and it will be circling back. So thank you very, very much.
Okay, and did you want to give us the date again for the board member recruitment for spring, when they have to have the application in? I assume they can do it at any time.
Yeah, I gotta pull that up, Susan. Give me just a second. It is going in the Go. Oh, here we go. May 28th.
Thank you. So if we know of anybody, let's reach out and see if we can get some more people on the board.
I think I might have asked this before. In terms of board members, they need to be a voter and live in Longmont. Is that correct? Registered voter in Longmont?
Yes.
And is there a certain time? Do they have to do you have to live here for a year? Is that what it is? Or is it just that you need to be a registered voter?
A year.
Okay.
And this board is 4 out of 7 must be 55 plus, but there is room for younger people to be on the board. So an adult of voting age, any age is acceptable at this point. We've met the 55 plus.
You think?
I think.
So the next thing on the old business is goals and 2021 goals and review ongoing commitments from the bottom of the agenda.
Yeah, so several years ago, under Michelle Kriegut's leadership, we sort of did ongoing tasks and commitments and then specific goals for the year. So, of course, in 2020, this kind of got messed up along with a lot of other things. So I just do you want to just start with a clean slate, or do you want to sort of reflect back and see if there's anything from the ongoing work you want to carry forward, and then any goals for 2021 specifically? So fresh slate or pick up from the past? Though that seems to be the first choice.
Pick up from the past, even if it means deleting some of these items, sounds like a good place to start.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, we don't need to start from the beginning. I mean, you've got plenty of work to do already, and
Okay.
you don't need to start everything there. Just continue with what we have and add or delete.
Okay, so the ongoing kinds of things this board has been involved in have been to recommend safety information items for the GO. And then we had switched to the census, which we can eliminate at this point. We had making follow-up calls to the Get Acquainted participants, which have been very limited. We had conduct an open house for outreach purposes, which might look different in 2021. And then the annual report. So those were kind of the 4 ongoing things. Any changes, thoughts about that list? Keep it the same for now until we see about reopening. Art says yes with a nod. Janine, yes. Sheila, okay. All right, so then if we were to look at the goals, again, we could eliminate the census one. The education in the GO sort of links to that safety piece up above, but it has taken on other kinds of things. We have put sustainability information in the GO. We have put volunteer for the city, volunteerism items in the GO. So education in the GO is pretty broad. Number 2, the complete count committee could go away. Transportation, the age well, and then complete the ordinance change, which I completely shelved. totally fell off my range top. It fell right off the stove. So one of the things I would like you all to think about as a potential goal, and I don't have any kind of specifics in mind, is what does our reopening look like? As I told my staff on Monday, we've been closed 10 months and 17 days on Monday. So your thoughts and participation and advice on how we reopen is, I think, I mean, we're going to get the regulations from public health, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in a bigger, in a different kind of way, in addition to the regulations. So thoughts on goals for 2021? And Marcia, if you have some things you know coming up in the city that would be appropriate, I'd be really interested. I've had a couple conversations with Rob Spenlow, the acting public safety chief, about some community engagement they're looking at as a department, might be a possibility. So anything like that. Janine.
It's very difficult right now to focus on long-term goals with everybody, being concerned about COVID and their whole focus of life, being around getting vaccines, getting safe, those types of things. I think things like making our board members that, are alternates, we're having difficulty even getting a full number of board members right now. So I think it's important that we be patient and know that, you know, we need to have a plan, but the long-term planning, all things are negotiable given our current health crisis. And I would like to see some goal or some mention of being a source for people to go to if they're having difficulty with getting a vaccine, because that's on a lot of people's minds right now. And it's not as easy as we all think, or, you know, I got mine, I was lucky. And trust me, I really believe that. But there are members in our community that are really struggling with that process.
Marcia.
Yeah, I have several thoughts. You know, the governor's goal is to have 70% of people over 70 and a number of people over 65 vaccinated by the end of this month. So, you know, we will have a big pool of hopefully immunized people that are going to be returning to a more public life. And I think there's an opportunity here, not only in helping the stragglers, but providing an incentive for people who've been hesitating about getting the vaccine to get it done. I mean, just the incentive of having a real life social club to drop in on is a big deal. And if, I don't know whether you want to have rules or whether it's just outreach, but, you know, having people show their vaccination card, making sure people understand that they're still supposed to be masking in respect of others. And then of course, you know, providing administrative assistance for those who aren't vaccinated yet would be a good, you know, first 3 months kind of program to have running in operation at the senior center. I am especially shocked. I was shocked to learn this at council last night, that 90% of our vaccinated people are white. And 90% of our people are not white. And I'm familiar enough with the providers of medical care in this town to be pretty sure that this is not overt discrimination. This is other kinds of problems. You know, so the city is putting together teams of cultural brokers to try and reverse that trend. But the senior center can act as de facto cultural brokers and should, I think, because my observation about the senior center, and I don't have that many because I don't really partake of the social scene at the city civic center. I don't have time, but it's not been my observation that the senior services are that skewed. You know, it's not primarily a white social scene there. And so I would really like to see us be some kind of a force in mitigating that scary trend.
Michelle, I would be interested to know if any of our seniors have contacted the center for help in getting on a list for vaccines.
We have been fielding calls left and right, as many people have, about how to get hooked up with a vaccine. Deanne's been doing a really great job in our weekly newsletter about where people can get vaccines. And as the information changes, which it has over the last several weeks, she's continued to refresh that. And then Monica has been including that in our Spanish email newsletter that goes out. Carmen Ramirez from the city and some folks from Boulder County Public Health, we are trying to work with them to reach our non-Anglo folks who live in the senior independent living facilities, and we're providing data to them Friday and doing some specific outreach and education. So we make sure the information we're sharing is accurate and current, and we can help people get signed up. So we're doing a lot of that, as are several agencies across the county. Boulder County Public Health is very concerned about those statistics that Marcia just shared and what we can all do to better inform and educate and ease the process. So transportation has been an issue, which you all talked about, and who needs in-home shots. And so we're working on both of those angles as well. And so continuing to do that outreach is really, really key. So there are, in addition to the language issues around the vaccines, there is also a mistrust that's, centuries in the making, and also very hard to overcome. So on many levels. So Prudence.
I was going to say, it's great that we're working with Carmen because she really knows the community. I've worked with her before on issues. The other thing is that would the city consider really a public education campaign in Spanish? So for example, at the rec center, the senior center, we had the TV that said this, that, and that is happening. Could it be that banners are put up, that people could see, like the library has one, both in English and Spanish, as to what curbside pickup is? And I'm wondering if the city can do some that way also. And I'm not sure how the senior center could have a big banner, both in English and Spanish. People still go past there because I work at Roosevelt Park myself. So I'm thinking of that as another way to outreach. Also, I think that now that pharmacies like CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart's not really a pharmacy, will be getting vaccination doses, we may see, because that's where people shop, we may see an increase. There's also talk of mobile injection clinics in both Black and Brown communities. So I don't know whether that is a fit for us or how that would happen, but that's just my thought process.
So the Boulder County is looking at what they call a strike force, which is part of that mobile clinic approach. It's one way of doing that. What I am hearing is that we can put the information out in Spanish, we can do the education, but we have to really have the promotores. We really have to have those spokespeople who can help us overcome some of the trust issues and really deliver the message culturally as well as linguistically, correct. So it's all of those things. And I think that that is happening. Yeah, it's happening. I don't think it's probably happening as fast as some of us want it to happen. I think the fact that this was certainly very ageist, in my opinion, in the whole rollout that came out, everything was online. And so oh, guess what? Not everyone over 70 has an email account and is online. Well, if you take that into our communities of color, it's even a smaller percentage of folks who have access to email and online. And so there is some real missteps, I think, in people who are making decisions around how this rolled out that we're now trying to catch up on. And so one of the things here, I mean, so much has gone virtual, and what we have found with a number of our Latino customers is that we're doing bridge phone calls. We're not doing Zoom. We're not doing web-based. We are actually doing group phone calls, bridge calls, as a way to reach people. So you have to use all your resources to help make this happen. So Susan, it looks like you have Sheila, Prudence, and Marcia.
Who's first?
Are the churches playing any role in this, any official role? Because a lot of, maybe the majority of Hispanic people are Catholic, and plus there are other churches that people attend, older people attend.
You know,
Sheila,
that's a great question. I have not heard or seen of the faith communities, at least in my circle, but maybe Marcia has something to say.
It was discussed, thank you. That was discussed last night at council. The city has actually hired bilingual cultural brokers and are forming teams and are holding, I think, what they called cafecitas, or, you know, little coffees anyway, and in the neighborhoods, and outreach to the Spanish-speaking congregations is one of the specific things that was outlined. It was mentioned as a concern that sometimes a church building will have two congregations, one conducted in Spanish and one conducted in English, and the two congregations don't know each other. So, you know, just posting something in a building doesn't do anything. So yeah, it's really becoming a process of sending small teams into neighborhoods and organizing small events where hopefully there can be a train the trainer kind of effect, where if you put together the arguments and persuade your small group of attendees, then the hope is that they will repeat the process in their own neighborhoods.
So my understanding is Carmen is focusing on some of the folks who helped with the census, who are already were in communities, in neighborhoods doing outreach. And so that's just a great approach. And so that's one of the things she's focusing on.
I wonder if she has enlisted Marta Lochamin. I mean, Marta's probably busy learning to be a commissioner, but she knows all those people that did this job during the flood. So if she could be enlisted, that would be a big deal.
I think the other thing is that, you know, it's important. I mean, it's one thing to have the promotoras go in and Carmen. The other thing is that the person giving the vaccine, you know, we have to look at them culturally, whether they are just Caucasian speakers speaking Spanish, or they are actually Latinx, because the trust factor increases when you have someone who looks like you and speaks like you and knows your culture and can reassure you and be culturally appropriate. So I'm just wondering if there's enough providers that fit that bill.
Certainly Salud Clinic fits that bill very well. And I know that they're also, in addition to the pharmacies, which I think Marcia mentioned, getting vaccines, we're also working with a number of home health care agencies.
Mhm.
So I think it's about getting the right folks into the right communities, Prudence, and yeah.
Yeah.
I totally think they're on that.
You know, one of the things that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Janine. Can't hear you. Okay, what I was going to say is that the mailings that go out from the center, I mean, do we have actually addresses of people that visit the center that do not have access to electronics and things like that? That we send something personally to them from the center?
Yes, we do. We do a phone call follow-up for sure. And Monica and Veronica, Sochi and Melissa all are trying to stay in touch with those folks. And I think there's about 80 people on that list, and then they call and they call and they call, and it kind of just spreads like a spider's web.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question. I mean, are there enough people in your office that we could reach all these people that need to be reached? Because I guess what I'm really saying is that if I could help in any way in making some phone calls, I'd be happy to do that. And even though I don't feel real good about transporting people in the car, as long as they have the mask and things like that, I guess I'm willing to try some of that. But I don't know what it is. The whole process is not easy. I mean, even for the English-speaking people, I have a 90-year-old man that I've worked with through the church for for months, I should say. And I have called places myself and said, I've got a 90-year-old man that needs to get this vaccine. Well, he's going to have to be on the list with everybody else. I mean, that's the answer you get. So personally, I don't think they're inadvertently discriminating against people. It's just that some people just, like you say, it's that trust factor, people calling them, letting them know where they're available. I don't know. It's just difficult to call in and leave your name and we'll get back with you. And you have no idea if you're number 10 or if you're number 10,000,
Right.
So, people just after a while just give up on some of that. So I don't know. I don't know what I can do to help in the Hispanic community. I mean, I can call Carmen. You can call Carmen, whatever. And I'm willing to do whatever I can to help on this. But I know it's going to be and it's going to be difficult.
Art, I met with some folks who were looking at doing a vaccine clinic, and I told them that both you and Janine had offered to be a part and help out. I will let Carmen know again of your offer, Art, and I'll reach out to Monica and Veronica and see where they're at. If they could use some help making phone calls, I think that's great. So thank you. We'll be back in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Janine?
I also think it's important to bring the vaccine to the community instead of expecting the community to go seek out the vaccine. And I think in the Latinx community, that's especially important. And I was at the Hour Center the other day and noticed all of the people in line to pick up food, and in terms of how to access people where they go, certainly the food banks, the Hour Center, those might be places where we can better contact people in the community at places that they go. And I think that's going to be very an important consideration. We haven't been able to do that right now because of availability and restrictions in terms of how to store vaccine at the right temperature. So those are all factors. And when our community has better access to vaccine, how we can better serve the members, all of the members of our community.
Oh, more work. So I took some notes. I will revise these goals. I think that there are two others we might want to look at. One is filling the board positions. And number two is preparing for my retirement. So, you know, I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I would suspect someone will be asking you about the position and what you're looking for, or what your involvement would be in filling my position if they fill it when I leave, all of those kinds of things. So that's probably later in the year for discussion, but I would hope that you all would have a role in that. So.
And Michelle, do you have a date?
I'm looking at May of 2022. Prudence, I have not put any of that in writing yet, but
Right.
April of 2022 is my official 40th year anniversary. And
So you haven't put it in writing, but now you are live streaming and it's in the records.
It's in the record. That's why I asked.
out there forever. So, I mean, I need a date to shoot for, and that's just, you know, it's important for me to get the senior center back up and open and on its feet. I said this to the Friends Board. I want to make sure the staff and the board, both boards, the foundation is there and strong and everybody has what they need. I have seen organizations when someone has left after the kind of tenure I have struggle, and I am trying to minimize that struggle for after I leave. So
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, you and the Friends and the staff are really going to carry it forward, and I want to make sure everything is in place. So those would be the couple that I would add. The public safety community engagement piece, the reopening, filling the board positions, my retirement, and then what Janine added, sort of the source of information around the vaccines. Is that all
I
good?
think that's pretty good.
Okay, then I think this item can, we can move past. And Prudence, I will update that on the agenda, just so you know, and then we can look at your notes and my notes and make sure I got it correct. Okay, thanks.
So that brings us to the 2020 annual report additions and corrections.
So I did a combined report because A, I just didn't have time, and B, this world was too crazy. So the Friends, the advisory board, and the staff report are all combined into one. You have that. As I said, I belatedly sent that out. Nicole, I don't know if you want to pull it up at this point. Thank you. So I'm not going to read this by any means, but I would maybe we look and hold this for March. But this is sort of a collective report. Nicole, if you want to go to the very last page. I did a Friends of the Senior Center and a Longmont Advisory Board highlights. Whoop, sorry, up one. There we go. Hold right there. I did some highlights specific to the board. And so, and then up above, if you want to go back up, Nicole, these are just basic statistics, who we've served, and what has kind of been our focus this year. So I ran this by Susan and Janine with regard to, is this an okay approach? and they sort of gave it a general thumbs up. So I think, Susan, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we want to make sure with the board, the rest of the board, that you're okay with this approach, which is a little different from past years. This would go to city council. So Marcia, if you've got any guidance, we'd love that. So how would you like to proceed? Do you want Nicole to start with page 1, give you a moment to read it? Do you want to just talk about the overall approach, whether you support it or not, and then discuss the details in March? I'm definitely.
I think that this is a good approach. It kind of smacks of Sarah's minutes, narrative type things. And I think you captured pretty much everything that we did very well.
Do we need a motion to approve the presentation?
You would need a motion to approve the report because then it gets sent to council. And I think Marcia in the January meeting suggested you all do actually a presentation, which I'd happy to be a part of that to council, not just submit. Marcia's suggestion was to not just submit a written report. And did I get that right, Marcia? You might jump in there.
Yes, and I mean, this is a substantial report. I think a report to us, a slide presentation to council, especially considering the vehemence with which our mayor is opposed to long presentations, should be something that requires 10 to 15 minutes at the most, not a long elaborate thing, but a highlights sort of thing. So a slide of the activities and accomplishments of the board, a slide of the activities and accomplishments of the Friends, and then more about the ongoing programs of the senior center and goals that were set at the beginning of last year and the extent to which they've been fulfilled. Obviously this year that's not necessarily going to be straightforward one-to-one because so many plans had to change because of the closure and stuff, and there should definitely be one slide about what the adaptations were and how they worked, and I would hope that the Meals on Wheels would get some time in that.
Their statistics are pretty amazing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're talking a total where people pay attention is 10 slides.
Or less.
Exactly.
Exactly. 5 to 10, that's it.
Yep. Yeah. And again, you've got 5 to 10, you've got 5 big topics. I think I listed off 5 big topics, one of which probably is worth more than one slide, although maybe not 5 more slides.
No.
It works out pretty well.
So I can make a motion to approve.
And I will second that motion.
You guys going to vote?
All in favor?
Oh. Raise your hand. Opposed? Looks like it carries.
So Susan, I will get with you, and it's usually a month, 3 weeks or more to get on the council agenda. So I'll get with you, Susan, and we'll figure that out and let the board know when that's scheduled. So.
Okay. So we're up to any other old business? And if not, we're moving on to new business with the census report.
So we did have a wrap-up meeting. There is a document. I tried to scan it and send it, and I think there's just too many graphics. It's 30 pages. It is the Boulder County 2020 Census Campaign Collaborative report, sort of the concluding report. You know, in all honesty, I haven't read the document. I got to tell you. I haven't had that chance. But Sarah was our representative. She's now off the advisory board. Marcia, I don't know if anybody's done a presentation to council. You're probably in a better position than I maybe to do the report. And if somebody is interested, I'm happy to try and get this PDF'd and sent out to the board, but I could not just scan it and send it. It was just too big. So if there is someone who's interested in the full report, maybe a show of hands, and I will get it PDF'd. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for me to read it, try and figure it out. Or Marcia, if you have anything to add.
I would say to get things on the council agenda is something that I can do, but to make a presentation to council is pretty much something I can't do.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. So let me know when it's time to get it on the agenda and I'll take care of that piece. And I would like a PDF. I mean, if it's huge work, okay.
Okay. Anybody else interested? Okay, Marcia, I will, oh, Julie, and okay. I will get it to you.
Is it on the city's website?
I don't know that, but it should be.
Yeah, because that would make it available for everyone.
You know what? When we go on, I will do a quick search. It's a great thought, Prudence.
Michelle, I can do that search for you. What was the name of it again? You're muted, my dear.
Boulder County 2020 Census Campaign Collaborative.
Okay, give me a sec then. That way you guys can keep meeting and I'll do the search while you guys are talking.
It's the Collective Impact Report. Great.
Okay, I got it.
Great. Great idea, Prudence. Thank you. Okay, Susan, I think we can probably move on and let Nicole come back when she's ready.
All right, then the sustainability input.
So, yeah, my understanding is that they are looking for some input on some possible topics related to environmental quality and sustainability. I listed them there on the agenda. We, as a division, don't really have anything as a related work plan item. However, if you have a few thoughts about any of these topics, air and water, pollution prevention, etc., maybe we would just take a couple minutes and give Janine some input on that so she can carry that forward to the Sustainability Committee. Prudence.
Prudence.
I was going to say, how about not taking on new things, but maximizing recycling and composting. I'm not sure what the statistics are now, but they've always been pretty low.
And that could be something that you all would like to do as an article in the newsletter. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good possibility. Marcia.
Yeah, this actually came up last night in City Council. There was a presentation by Bob Allen and Charlie Canamides about the future of our waste diversion programs. And in my opinion, it was a little bit of a miss in the sense that they didn't provide enough information about the environmental impact of their different suggestions for us to make a decision. So all we could do was say, keep working on them until you can quantify this, you know. But one thing that did come up was that when people misuse the recycling and composting stream bins, it costs the city money because the poorly constituted diversion streams have to be directed to the landfill, and we really don't have a very good system for getting all of that done. So one thing that they can do at a higher level than has been done in the past is educating people about how to use those 3 bins. I use my home as a transitional housing from time to time, and none of my pseudo tenants have they've always wrecked my recycling scheme. They just completely put things in the wrong bins, and I had to go through them and fix them, which was not my favorite idea of a job. But I think it's sort of like the vaccination thing. Just having the instructions on a poster doesn't do any good, because I put my poster on the door to where in the garage, I kept the bins and nobody paid any attention to it. So maybe a form of outreach, I would say specifically to seniors who did not grow up with this being a thing, right? And I know, all you guys are probably great recyclers and composters because you're very civically aware people, but I think the general population, that may not be true. So maybe, as a thing to get better at, it would be, in-person outreach, actually talk about it and understand the importance of it.
Does the sustainability committee also do education?
Yes.
Because one of the things could be, where does your stuff go? I think that people, there has been, news and stuff that it's really not worth recycling and all of that. And just an ongoing conversation about where things go. It could be helpful as part of the overall education program.
I agree.
Julie?
Do we have any education programs at the senior center about recycling?
We do, and I know that our staff have reached out to some of the staff in Public Works and Natural Resources to do that. We purchased, right before we closed last March, we purchased new bins, and we had kind of an in the building education plan ready to roll out. And then of course we haven't had people in the building. So yes, and we can pursue that as we open back up for sure, or possibly as a virtual program.
And I think you mentioned something, Michelle, about having, some information in the go. I think that's a really good idea as well.
Okay, great. Janine, do you need any other info? You feel like you got enough relative to these topics? You're muted, sorry.
Try again, you're still muted.
Yeah. Yes, I will. Yeah, I've written these down, and I think also in terms of education, it really was helpful for a lot of people to have the different bins be in different colors, because that gets your attention, just the difference in the color. But I'm still not always sure about what goes into what bin. I know about garbage, but as far as recycle and composting, I'm still not 100% sure myself. So I think that I would also mention that.
Oh, yeah, Prudence.
One other thing about green building, there's LEED, which is, really big. So I'm wondering whether buildings that have gone from not green to green, how we can highlight those businesses, whether the city does that or whether that goes into some kind of communication and helping business owners to do that and that transition over to the community. So it's a full education.
Marcia.
Yeah, Janine, is that something that you've learned about by attending the sustainability meetings? Because if it's not, then I'll talk. But if you have, then you talk.
I actually haven't been to a meeting yet.
Oh, okay.
And so my first meeting, I think, when I find out which is going to be next Wednesday, but I haven't attended a meeting yet. So
Okay.
because Jack always went to the meetings, so I didn't attend
Sure.
personally.
Yeah. So anyway, the city does have a program manager for that who reports to Lisa Knobloch. And oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name. She's adorable.
Talking about Francie?
Francie, yes.
Okay.
So she does do that, and highlight compliant businesses and gives mini grants, and she seems to be doing a lot with the program, although it's very new. It's been in place maybe less than a year, or well, no, more than that now, because pandemic time stretches out funny. But in terms of functional outreach time, it's about a year, and obviously, curtailed a bit during the pandemic, but she's, I'm sure, eager to spin it back up again.
Julie?
Marcia, you might know the answer to this question, but does Longmont have a program that certifies businesses as green or sustainable? I know that Boulder does, but I'm not clear. I just don't know if Longmont does or not.
I don't think it's reached the level of a certification program yet.
Okay.
So there are, she's teaching sort of mini classes and then recognizing businesses that have made progress in the area. So the last sustainability awards, she recognized businesses that had made all gender restrooms, that had improved their ventilation in their buildings, and that were voluntarily recycling, because the city does not have any requirement that businesses do anything other than standard waste removal.
Hmm.
Just to go back up one, Nicole, thank you. I just sent you all two emails forwarding from what Nicole found online. So way to go, Prudence. You have the reports. So thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
You guys are more than welcome.
So does that take care of sustainability, Janine? You're set with that, Janine, for sustainability?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So on to reports. Michelle, you still have more to tell us?
I do. So I sent you some information from the Colorado Senior Lobby. Most of you will recall that I'm a member and I pass stuff on when I hear things. So for many, many years, the Colorado Senior Lobby helped organize a senior day at the Capitol in March. This board has gone in the past, met with various legislators, had some opportunities for conversation and education. This year, they're kind of doing it online, and they're calling it Older Coloradoans Week. And they have 4 topics, and they all look really good. Virtual lawmaking, voices on aging, older worker issues, and then a call to action for older Coloradoans. So they are free. There is some request for a donation, but hopefully, there might be something of interest. If you have any questions about this or Colorado Senior Lobby, let me know. But they look pretty good. I kind of like this approach. I often got frustrated with Senior Day at the Capitol because it didn't always feel to me like older adults got to say their piece. It was more like older adults had to listen. So I like this. I like sort of getting people information and empowering them. So anyways, I will continue to send those to you, and you just need to let me know if it doesn't make sense or you're not interested or whatnot. So I'll continue to do that. Julie, you will get an invitation to an orientation for new board members. That'll come from Michelle Gomez. I think everybody else has had an orientation. It looks like they've had to bump it out. Looks like it's not going to be till March 1st now, but that'll be coming. We did some outreach regarding our technology. And so I want to let you know we have had 6 people request tablets and 32 request Chromebooks. About 12 people need help paying for access to the internet. And I think some things just opened up and we might have some opportunity for that. The email just came through, which I just saw the little blurb. But we are also working with Boulder County Area Agency on Aging and the Friends to possibly buy some hotspots for people who have internet access challenges. So we had, out of the 38 people, 12 indicated they needed help with internet. 28 people out of the 38 indicated they needed help with education and tech support. So we are putting together a flyer for them of all the various support and education that's available, of course, including our senior computer tech program. We asked folks if their connection to others had been negatively impacted by COVID. And out of the 38 people, 24 said yes, it had been definitely impacted. Out of the 38 people, 13 of those folks are people of color. So I feel very good that we've reached some folks who maybe haven't been outreached to before. So we're going to be spending the rest of this week trying to figure out how we get the Chromebooks and the tablets into their hands, and very excited to move that forward. And the Friends and Boulder County Aging Services were instrumental in making this happen. And it sounds like City Council might be helping. Some things are happening at the City Council level that maybe Marcia can speak to in a moment. That would be great. Working on this Spring Go, folks are continuing to do their programming and their services. Amy has been very involved at Aspen Meadows neighborhood, Aspen Meadows Senior Apartments with the rehab project there. The last of the folks whose apartments are getting rehabbed will be moving back in March 15th. So that rehab effort should wrap up the middle of next month. And then Amy will be more available. She's been spending a lot of time at Aspen Meadows. We've got several new staff on board at Longmont Housing Authority. And so I am able to spend more time back here at the Senior Center. Super excited about that. Meals on Wheels received 9 pallets, about 5 feet high, of food. And so our gym has been taken over as they are making emergency food boxes. And there is so much, they're going to deliver them in 2 waves to people. So, you know, these are some of the things we would not be able to do if we were not closed. Many of you have asked about income tax. It is happening. It will start the week of the 15th of February. The way it's going to work is our income tax volunteers will be inside the building in rooms D, E, and F, and people will come to the little drive-through. A volunteer will go out, get their papers, come inside, scan them, go back, hand them the papers, work on it. And so we are really looking at minimizing the contact time. We are working with Monica, our front desk staff person, around the Spanish-speaking folks who have made appointments. So we'll be making that happen. We had to get AARP nationally, wanted a letter saying that even though the building was closed, the city was okay with us housing the AARP volunteers. So we worked with the city attorney's office to get that letter so we could make AARP happy. So income tax is happening.
Michelle, one question, go back to the 5 pallets. Is that standard food that they were get anyway, or is this where's it coming from? Like,
yeah,
how did this fall out of the heavens?
it fell out of the FEMA. It fell out of the federal FEMA supply. And so it is non-perishable. So it's no fresh fruit, no fresh veggies, no meat, but other things that folks can use and minimally, requires minimal preparation.
So would this be given out in addition to what they prepare?
Correct.
Okay.
Kind of like how they do their emergency blizzard bags. So folks have product in their cabinets to eat should something interrupt the delivery schedule. Yeah, good question. Sorry about that. Art.
Yes, Michelle, on the income tax assistance, are most slots filled already, or are there still slots available?
Yeah, most of the slots are filled. We are hoping that our new federal leadership will extend the April 15th deadline, and we can add more slots. But we haven't heard any buzz about that yet. But we're hoping President Biden's team changes the due date for folks so that we can fit some more people in. The VITA site here in Longmont, we are also giving information about that site, and they are also helping with income tax at no charge. So,
and are we getting a waiting list for people that? Okay.
Yeah, and we absolutely the income tax volunteers reached out to everyone. We had to cancel in March and April of last year. So because they have 2 years worth of taxes to do. So they did reach out to those folks early before we just opened up the slots. So we have less slots this year, and we have some people who absolutely need to do 2 years of income tax. But Maggie and her team, oh my gosh, amazing. They're great, and they will do their best to try and fit everybody in. And we will support them. In fact, the Lafayette tax aid volunteers reached out to us to ask us if we would help make some copies for them. So we're all trying to help each other out here. Question, Prudence?
Michelle, you talked about the drive-up window. For people who take the bus, let's say, or they walk, are they able to walk up to that window?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And if folks, in the past, Prudence, if people did not have transportation, our volunteers have done some other things. And our staff have gone and gotten papers and come back, and we'll work with people. We don't always broadcast that, but we try to make it work for people. But we are really concerned about the people who are anxious because they didn't file last year. And those folks, we really want to try and lessen the anxiety around that. So income tax is happening. Golf is happening. We're very excited. We get to do some real programming. So we're trying to figure out that. It worked last spring and summer, so we're pretty excited to get golf going. The little things. So, I also have Michelle Kriegut's report. Susan, do you want me to do that right now?
Sure.
This is actually exciting. So Cinnamon Park has 2 residences just north of the cemetery, north of Mountain View on Cinnamon Street. They are each 24-unit buildings, and that's an assisted living. So 2 24-unit assisted livings. And Cinnamon Park takes Medicaid, which is huge because we just don't have enough Medicaid assisted living places. So Cinnamon Park has a 3rd plot of land that would hold another building. And so they applied to the state for tax credit to build a 3rd building, and it would be independent living with the opportunity for people who live there to go to one of the other 2 buildings for their meals. There's 24-hour staff at the other 2 buildings. So in a campus kind of way, it's really a great addition to our continuum of senior housing. So they applied to the city for $250,000, which it turned out they needed in addition to their tax credit loan. And the city, through the technical review group, and I assume council does the final vote on this, did authorize the $250,000 to Cinnamon Park for additional funding for the construction of those senior apartments. So I'm super excited, some additional housing, and even more important, it has that added support right next door. So this is really great. They will be tax credit property for seniors. So anyway.
Will it be another 24-unit building?
It's a great question, Susan. I haven't seen the architectural design, but that's what I had heard. The building itself was going to be complementary to the other 2 buildings. So I'm guessing it's going to be around 24 units, but I can dig a little bit on that and let you know. So Michelle sent that report, and I wanted to let you know that she asked me to pass that on. So very exciting. Yay, more senior housing. So I'm always excited about that. That's it for me.
So on to Marcia.
Okay, let's see. I think Michelle has told as much as I know already about more senior housing. Could I take this opportunity to ask to get you guys to weigh in on your feelings about something that seems to be blocking low income and affordable housing. This is not public senior housing that I'm talking about, but housing that is accessible to seniors with low incomes, and particularly, condos that have elevators in the building and, things like that. what we're seeing is that we have builders that are willing to build that kind of units, you know, with buildings, you know, 4 or 5 story buildings with 60 or so low cost condominiums or rental units. And they are running afoul of the city code, even though they are more than complying with the inclusionary zoning ordinance, because with the price of land in Longmont and the availability of, you know, infill land, because the idea is to build them in the city, not way out on the edge where it's, you know, hard for people with limited mobility to get around. The city code wants to require more off-street parking than is feasible of these buildings. My position on this, honestly, is that we need to fix the code, because it's already a sustainability goal of the city to reduce people's dependencies on automobiles and, you know, get people to drive less. And because it's it's a poor assumption that all the people who live in these smaller spaces are going to have 2 or 3 vehicles in their families. And I would like to consider changing the code so that at least if you're within, you know, a 3 or 4 block walking distance of a transit line, that we should not require as many parking spaces per unit as the code does now. So does anybody got thoughts on that? Because of course neighborhoods are objecting.
Janine?
I just would be very happy to present another thought on that, Marcia, and that is that I happen to live in a neighborhood that over the last 3 years has been inundated with apartment complexes with no consideration whatsoever to traffic, to parking, not allotting enough parking space for the number of people that live in those apartments, whether they have 1 or 2 vehicles, and all of those cars end up out on the street and throughout the streets of the neighborhood. There have been 2, 3, 4, 5 within a 1 block radius. And one that is senior housing that was built is now asking to double their building, continuing building, doubling the number of units. So I think that before that gets done, that at least someone look at the effects of all of those cars, all of that street parking, the fact that there isn't a bus line through the neighborhood, the fact that it does impact significantly the other residents, and not just the fact that it's become a huge building complex, but the fact that there's very little thought into accommodating what all those people and all of those units do. And, you know, and going and expressing those opinions at zoning board meetings or at building meetings is, as I was told, going to one, well, the plan is the plan. These are informational only. And I think what that does is it enrages neighborhoods. And I think there's very little we can do about it. The truth is, as I learned going to the zoning and building class, if anybody can build whatever they want on their property. And there is a consideration to how many cars you can put on the street. Because it isn't just being parked outside of their apartment, it's being parked in front of people's homes, down the street, and wherever. And that isn't even addressing what other people come to business. That's it.
Well, yeah, and I will tell you, I speak to my share of enraged neighbors. So, yeah, I'm glad to see you representing that viewpoint. Can I ask what area of the city that you're referring to?
I am referring to Prairie Village.
Which is in the Clover Basin area?
No, Prairie Village is, it's off of Alpine between 21st and US 66.
Okay, so northwest.
We are in the
No?
northeast. We're east of
Okay,
the-
sorry, that's the part of the city I know the least. So one thing is those complexes still are subject to the code. That is, they have to have on-premises parking in a certain proportion to the number of units they build. So it's not like they're going to be allowed to build new units without allocating new parking spaces. They must.
Go take a look. Count the number of apartments and count how many potential parking areas there are, and they don't have underground parking. So I know the woulda, coulda, shoulda, but you don't have to be a mathematician to figure that out. And we've already experienced what happened when they built the first two apartment complexes. And what they're doing now is massive.
Well, okay, I'm just saying, you know, it won't get through permitting. I mean, it's only like 1.2 cars per unit or something, or 1.5 cars per unit. So it may turn out that in that area, you're getting people with 2 or 3 cars in a 2-bedroom apartment, and it's a miscalculation, and we should research that. But the other thing is, of course, you're talking about an area that's not on the bus line, whereas maybe I didn't make that clear, but I was only talking about properties that are on the public transit corridors as relaxing that. Prudence, did you have something to say?
So I think there's a couple of things. I hear what Janine is saying because I was in the class with her, and so I heard what her issue is before. And I think a couple of things. Underground parking. The second thing is that you may, so that's up to the builder. Okay, underground parking is not inexpensive in terms of what a builder has to do. The other thing is that, the second thing is that people can make their area, this may not be popular, but it's worked in other cities, permit areas. So people, like in Janine's situation, if they have 5 people visiting them over an extended period of time, or they have a family with 2 or 3 cars, they have to have a permit to park, which they have to pay for. So it's a revenue generator for the city. And then the permit, it's only people who have permits who can park between, let's say, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. The weekends, it's a free-for-all. So that's another thing to control folks. As far as saying, okay, this is senior housing, finding out how many people who are going to either buy or rent have a car. So that's kind of the other thing. So if you have 24 units, but 50% of those people have cars, it may decrease what the builder has to put out because they would only build 12 spaces.
Yeah, and you know, we've considered that, and these applicants are doing all kinds of things. You know, you get an eco pass with your lease and, you know, stuff like that. to try to discourage excessive automobile ownership. And you know, at some point, Longmont is going to have to do that to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. You know, the current automobile culture is not sustainable. But there are a lot of people that are really wedded to it, and it's not going to happen without pain. So yeah, we're looking at that. Of course, there's turnover, and I think probably what has happened in the areas that are overbuilt with, I mean, they're called luxury apartment complexes. They're not really luxury apartment complexes in the sense of, you know, a Manhattan penthouse, of course, but they're full market price, nicely appointed, large-ish apartment buildings. And yeah, they have more cars than the code expects them to have. And we, you know, I assumed you were talking about the Clover Basin area because, you know, everybody in that area complains to me about the situation. And yeah, it's definitely real. So, you know, I understand.
Some luxury apartments, I can tell you, offer transportation, which makes people say, you know, I don't really need my car because this place that is luxury, so it's done in Denver, my sister lives in Connecticut and has one, they can say, I want to go to the train station, take the train to Manhattan, or I want to go to Whole Foods, and they call, the apartment building has a service, it's not like she calls on demand. So that's the other thing for a builder to consider.
Yes. And yeah, I actually lived in one of those in St. Louis where it was way up north, and it was, you know, it was a nice complex, but it was pretty easy to afford because of its distance from downtown. They ran a shuttle from downtown. So you didn't have to commute. It was great. So yeah, those are all good ideas. And Janine, I will check and make sure that the code is being enforced on the periphery.
Well,
but it should be.
Thank you, Marcia. However, what you find is how is it enforceable? And the bottom line is that builders pretty much build whatever they want to build and think about the consequences of the impact on other things like roads and access and lights and schools after the fact. And I'm sorry, it's the world we live in, but reality is that overbuilding sooner or later becomes a huge problem, and neighborhoods live with the consequences.
Well, there are two things in there. I mean, the builders may not care about the consequences, but I think, Janine, what you are seeing is people living in the apartments and having 3 cars, as opposed to the apartment buildings being built with fewer parking places than the code requires. Those are 2 different things. And having oversight of what gets permitted and being on the quasi-judicial committees when permits get challenged, as they frequently do, I can tell you that we're not permitting things that don't have the code required parking. It may be a bad guess, but we're enforcing those codes. See if you see the difference. And we're getting a little far away from whether we should make accommodations for affordable housing, especially for senior affordable housing, or not, which was what I hoped we would talk about. Yeah, Julie?
So, Marcia, I think, you know, this is just my 2 cents worth, is that we're generally what I think you're talking about is doing, senior affordable housing infilling, right?
Mhm.
Near some type of public transportation, which you said within three blocks, I think.
Mhm.
And I think that, a lot of those folks already probably don't have a vehicle, or if they do, they may only have one. And so they're not going to have as large of an impact as those folks that are living in those luxury apartments. Because those luxury apartments, if you have, let's say you have a 2-bedroom, right? And you have maybe a family living in there, right? So maybe you've got parents, both of them have a car, and then you've got a teenager, they've got a car, right? Or if you have 2 roommates living in there, you've got 2 cars per unit, but only you're allowed in terms of code 1.5 cars, right? So I can see where Janine's coming from in that there are more vehicles per unit in those types of situations, where if we're looking at the senior affordable housing, I think we're looking at probably less folks owning vehicles. And then, how does that impact the neighborhood around us? I will say that the area that I live in, we're infiltrated by parking just by virtue of where I live, because of all of the activities that go on around me in the parks. And what I've had to, relinquish is the fact that there are times when I'm going to, if I'm going to have company at my house, sometimes they're going to have to walk further than they normally would. I consistently have cars from people in my neighborhood parked out front of my house. And I have a car parked out front of my house. So I think it's something where we all just have to sort of almost tolerate, because it is public street parking. Now, with the affordable housing, I think that maybe there is in order to get more senior housing, which we need affordable senior housing, maybe the code can be altered, right? And I think that one of the things to look at is, are they going to be apartments, or are they going to be a condo that's bought, right? But if it's you're always going to be having a rotating community going through there, right?
Yes.
You're not necessarily going to be having, people who are staying there for 10, 20 years, right?
Right.
So I think looking at the community that's going to be living there, looking at how long they're going to be living there, and how big of an impact will it take on the streets around them in terms of reducing the code in terms of parking for the building.
Right. Yeah. And I think to Julie's point, to answer an implied question there, we're trying to end up with a mix of affordable condominiums and rentals, because there's a market for both. There are people who can't purchase anything because of their credit rating. And then there are people who are looking for that first step into wealth development. And there should be something that they can attain, and live there for 5 or 7 years and build up equity. So all of those are needed. They're needed in the city and not on the periphery. And I completely agree with Janine that we have overbuilt apartments on the periphery. On the other hand, we have no open housing stock, essentially no housing in the whole city. There's this minimal amount of turnover in single family homes. That's pretty much it. So the definition of overbuilt is kind of hard to understand. We have to try to understand what our goals are, because if you make it so that no one can find housing in the city, then you have economic consequences that people who are already established in a home don't necessarily think about. All sorts of things quit working in your economy if service workers can't live here, for example. So anybody else? got comments? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what I expected to hear in that, yeah, there's a need, but there are concerns as well for the neighbors. So, okay, thank you.
We've got a few minutes left. Janine, do you have anything on the Area Agency on Aging?
I do not. I attend my first meeting as a guest this Friday. My actual membership does not start until March, so I will have something to report next month.
And for the Friends, I attended the annual meeting, which, looking over the reports that they presented, is just amazing that the money is still coming in. It's still in good hands. They are steadfast addressing the COVID epidemic where they can, and they're just an amazing group of people. They took our Michelle Kriegut and Jack Belchinski are now on the Friends board. So they have been able to fill all of their board positions. But that was the big thing. And just to keep things moving, we've talked about TRG. Art, the Latino Coalition.
Oh, you're on mute. Art, you're on mute.
We did meet last month, and there was not a whole lot to report on. The only thing that I just want to say is the same thing that we've talked about with the vaccines. That's another issue that was discussed there, and nobody has a real good solution, or we haven't come up with a real good solution as to how to take care of that, primarily with the Hispanic community. But other than that, there was not anything else. I guess one other note I just saw here. There's a gentleman by the name of Alex Cardenas who works with the Boulder District Attorney's Office. And, he wants to know if there's anybody that has to deal with the courts, the District Attorney's Office, whatever, that is not feeling like they're getting the services that they need, or the information that they need, or whatever, that he is available to talk, and he is bilingual and can assist with meeting the needs of the bilingual folks here at the District Attorney's Office. But I think that's pretty much it for now.
Okay. Janine, anything else on economic development?
Sorry, nothing to report.
So I think we've made it to the end of our list of things to address. And I guess we will reconvene next month.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Michelle, what you were talking about with these those units over at Cinnamon Park, are they in place at this time?
No, they're going to build them. So
Okay, but this is not going to be low income or subsidized in any way, right?
Well, so 2 of the buildings are built and they are assisted living. And they are there right now. The 3rd building is going to be built. They are going to use tax credit money. So there will be a level of affordability, but it'll be based on the tax credit formula.
Okay, thank you.
So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. Thank you, everybody. It's always good to see you, even if it's on the screen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.